out of it. Yeah, I got her. Look at that one. Look at that thing. Another one. Oh, that's a giant on the draw. Look at the gut. What do you think? Think she wanted that a little bit?
What is up, MFers, and welcome out to the month of November. It used to be a month that I would absolutely dread when it came to bass fishing, and now that I moved down south, I could not look forward to it any more than I do. I went out with this bait the other day, caught one almost 13, caught a 10, caught some 8s. It's a month when they absolutely start to chew the big stuff, even more than they already do. And even if you live up north and the water's starting to get crazy cold, I got some tricks to catch those fish as well. So I'm gonna break down all my baits, my best tackle, my best baits, my best locations for the fish in November in this video. You're not gonna wanna miss this one because not only is it a time to catch fish on really cool big baits, sometimes you can catch the biggest bass of your life in November. Let's dive in. Before I dive into the baits, and we're actually gonna talk about these exact baits right here, 6th Sense just came out with some brand new colors of the draw swim bait, both in the 9-inch size and the smaller 6.5-inch size. And I wanna give away some of those baits to you guys. I'm gonna give these 2 baits away right here actually. These are super tuned baits by myself. I've done some work to the joints, I've done some work to the weighting. These baits are absolutely ready to go crush some giant fish. So I'm gonna give away one of these to one MFer in the comments section. So 2 of you guys are gonna win one of these badass super tuned draws by yours truly. All you have to do, comment down below, make sure you're a subscriber. So take a second right now, go become a subscriber because I know you guys wanna see more videos like this. You wanna catch giant fish, and of course you wanna get free $80 baits, of course, in the mail. And then share this video with a friend. Now I'm just asking you to share with a friend because if you got someone that loves bass fishing, then they're gonna wanna catch more fish in November too. Maybe they'll learn something right now, even if there's ice on the lake or they don't feel like going out or they're in a damn tree stand or something right now, that they can go apply in June next year and go crush them. Anyways, comment down below, be a subscriber, share this video with a friend. 1 week from today, check the description of this video right down in the description, and it's going to have the winner of each of these 2 baits. I'm gonna ship out to you guys. Let's talk about what's happening in November, and we'll kind of go through the locations where I like to search for fish and find fish in different types of fisheries, and then what baits I use to go actually catch said fish. And I know it's hot everywhere. I've been listening to guys talk about how they got no birds coming in up north. They're still way far north, way still behind their progressions of their usual seasonal migrations. It just hasn't cooled down as fast, and so that kind of changes some things. So it's really going to be dependent on the weather in November, and it's a huge transition month, just like we've talked about how September, it's starting to cool down, cooler nights, so we start to have a transition in September. October is the ultimate bait fish moving, bass moving to chase them down, to intercept them, transitional type of month. Well, now November, and really as we move forward, you know, it seems like fall gets a little bit later every single year. This has also become a transitional month. So let's think about, first off, what the fish are doing in a lot of different parts of the country. And I think there's one common denominator, whether they are actually on big bait fish or they just want a bigger meal for whatever reason. It seems like a big bait, I'm not just talking about a 10-inch swim bait, for those of you guys that just think this is gonna be a swim bait video, although we are gonna get into that. But for whatever reason, a big bait just freaking gets them. I don't know why exactly. It could be that it's later in the season, and so a lot of the shad are bigger, the bluegill, even the young of the year bluegill have grown, you know, 3, 4, 5 inches. I don't know what it is. Crappie, crawdads that have hatched, or some of them are growing, getting bigger. Everything forage-wise is a little bit bigger in the fall. Since we've moved on from their spawns, the bait fish spawns earlier in the year, and that can't hurt. But for whatever reason, the bass also just seem to really want to target these big bait fish now more than ever. And maybe it's just because it's easier for us to be there and intercept those fish when they are on said big bait fish. That was a lot right there. You guys know I throw a big bait all season long, but I can't tell you enough. Right now seems to be a time when you can even catch 2, 3, 4 pounders on big 7 to 10 inch baits. You know, we were just up north chasing smallmouth. You know, I caught a 6 pounder and a 7 pounder on this 6th Sense draw, a 9 1/4 inch glide bait and a smallmouth. It's crazy. They're on bigger stuff, and we're not only gonna have big baits that I talk about right here in my bait lineup, as a rule of thumb, I just want to go a little bit bigger. It was the same when I lived in Nebraska. It's the same down here in Texas. It's the same when I fished tournaments in the Ozarks, in Tennessee, when I've gone out fishing in California this time of year, when I fished in the Southeast in Florida, and when I've smallmouth fished. It's all the same. They all want something a little bit bigger, and I like to upsize in the month of November as October rolls on and we start to get into the winter months. November is my favorite time for a bigger profile bait. We're gonna talk about at least 3 different areas where I like to target these big bait fish eaters in the month of November. I don't know if I could pick one specifically that I like the best, but if there's one thing that holds true is with these longer falls, it seems like it's getting later, just like I talked about every year. Even though the sun angle is changing, the days are getting shorter, the fish can feel that for their transitions. It seems like what holds true in September and October in the past holds true in November now as well, at least in the start of the month. And down here south of the Mason-Dixon line, it's freaking toasty down here still, guys. I'm sitting here in my garage with the air conditioner on. My man Ralph from OTT Mechanical came over here. Huge him at first, so I want to shout out his business. He actually watched the videos and said, I can come help you out with your garage being hot. It's 67 in here. It's 93 outside right now. It is not cooled off here in Texas, hardly at all. Maybe some of that's coming, but it seems like the entire South right now is just crazy warm compared to where it used to be. Where I'm going with that is one major key piece of cover that's always good in October and September, even in August, is brush piles. And so what makes a perfect brush pile to me in the month of November might actually be a little bit different than what makes a really good brush pile in June, what makes a good brush pile in the middle of winter. But what I'm looking for right now in November is a place where those bass can ambush these big gizzard shad. Let's talk about big gizzard shad. This is an important forage, and I know not all of you have gizzards, but a lot of the country does have gizzards. This time of year in November, when the water gets down, I would say below 70 degrees or so, even below 75 degrees, since we barely had a change in our water temperature in the south. When it's from like 75 down into the high 40s, low 50s, bass start to get back on these groups of gizzards in a bigger way to me than they have been in some of the early fall and summer months. It's kind of similar, it's very similar actually, just in a little bit different scale, to a gizzard shad spawn that we will see in April, May, June, some places even up north. In the shad spawn in the spring, you're gonna see these fish get on super shallow, flat, clay, rock, that type of stuff. That's where the gizzards will spawn at. And so those points in humps and hard spots that really extend out in the lake, those can be extremely productive. You guys saw, that's how I won that tournament, that open at Toledo Bend on a gizzard shad spawn, up flat, 2 feet of water to 5 feet of water, super shallow. So I'm gonna be looking for in November a lot of flatter points with brush piles. And I'm not just talking about like a flat, super shallow point. No, these can be points that are down anywhere from 5 to 15 feet deep, and they don't have to be something that really extends way out into the lake. If it does, great. But what I look for in those brush piles is brush that's kind of sitting on that secondary shelf. Not the stuff up when the gizzard shad spawn in 2, 3, 4, 5 feet of water, but the next level down from that, and it can really depend on where your water level is at right now. Brush that's in like that 8 to 20 feet of water where it kind of tapers off, and then maybe it drops, the lake will drop off with some tight contours down to 20, 30, 50 feet of water. Flatter stuff like that, of course more isolated is always good. The baits I like to target fish with at that depth range, I throw this guy in there, especially fun fishing. We're throwing big glide baits. We're throwing this glide bait. This is a Clutch Boss. I love that one. You guys know I love the Hinkle shad. 6 cents draw, absolutely killer. Caught a giant one, 11 pounder on this actually 2 trips ago when I was out on this exact bait. These are baits that you're gonna incite the biggest fish in that brush pile in that area, almost always on the first throw. Now that's not to say that you have to have brush on those areas. Simply flat points are great all times of the year, especially flatter points on the main lake area towards the mouths of some major creeks if you're in a big body of water. Harder bottom, flatter points, 8 to 20 feet of water are really what I like to look for. And if you don't have any brush in that area, or really if you do, but if you don't have any brush in that area, you know, this is a perfect time to also throw a line through. 6 cents hangover, man, absolutely freaking killer for me. I don't know how many giants I've caught this time of year in the month of November on this bait, but it is absolutely deadly in Texas and all these southern states. And God, I've been talking to my buddies up in the Ozark area lakes. They've been crushing on the hangover this time of year, winding over the top of brush piles, just fishing it down the bank on some of these secondary areas we're going to talk about here in just a second. But these flatter points, you don't even need to have live scope. It's an area where you can just, you know, get this bait. This is the fast sink version, so you can fish it a little bit quicker down in the bottom and just have an opportunity to catch the biggest bass of your life on those areas. Some visual cues to look for. It's kind of similar to a gizzard shad spawn. What I look for is they're going to look almost like white bass. Not that can't be a good forage too, but little white bass or little crappie or bluegill, they're going to be little circular dots on the bottom, and you'll see anywhere from, you know, like, it's a little bit different than the shad spawn. The shad spawn you tend to not see quite as many sometimes, but I'll look for like groups of like 30 of those on the bottom, and it's like, those are not bass, but they're big. That's what you want to see, especially. The biggest key with this bite especially is going to be later in the day, after the sun's been out. You know, days with low light conditions, it can get tough on that flat, deeper point. When you get that sun out, you get a little bit of ripple on the water, you let that sun bake some of that water up a little bit, that's when the gizzards start really grouping up and showing up. The bass are going to be chowing down on them all day and all night probably, doing whatever they do, but once you get those bait fish positioned on those flatter areas, that's when you can pull out the old hangover. You guys know my setup on this, but I'll tell you again, the hangover, this is actually a little prototype guy. We won't get much into that, but I always throw it when I'm not throwing, you know, prototype rods to see if they're worth a shit. On the 7.7 heavy, fast MF rod, great rod because it's also my spoon rod. It's also my flipping rod. You can do a ton of different things with it. I throw the draw and most of my other big glide baits on this rod right here, 7.9 extra heavy fast MF rod. I'll throw them on a 7-speed reel. This is the Tranks 300. I like the Daiwa Tatua 300. It's a really good reel. 25-pound Gamma fluorocarbon, always on that, big fluoro on that setup. And I always fish with the snap. I've been getting a lot of questions if I fish the draw with the snap. I always fish it with a snap. For bigger glide baits, 5+ ounce glide baits, I'm throwing them on this the 6 Cents Customs Mag Glide Rod, 711 extra heavy. Again, this is the Tatua 300, same big 25-pound fluoro. This rod is an awesome big glide bait rod, a big treble hook, heavy treble hook bait rod because it's really parabolic. It's more parabolic actually than this 7.9 extra heavy, which has been great for me. I haven't lost hardly any fish on any of these, but when you start getting into the 5+ ounce size swim baits, glide baits, hard baits with treble hooks, it's really important to have that softer, more tapering rod. Of course, it's hard to find a rod that tapers right and is soft enough, but also can heave something that weighs that much. But that sponginess is really important to keep the fish penned and keep a little bit of a bend in the rod when they come up in their waller and, you know, 12-pounder jumping out of the water with a 10-inch bait hanging out of its mouth. And these little treble hooks, you're gonna want that 10 times out of 10. You're gonna want that softer, more limber rod. So those are my 3 setups when it comes to throwing those big glide baits and the big hangover. Another bait that I absolutely love in a brush pile this time of year, and we're gonna keep it simple. We're gonna use this on a different type of cover as well, and that is a big jig. We're gonna keep the same theme going, but a jig is absolutely awesome, of course, all year round. You can't go wrong with it. That's a 6 Cents Divine Hybrid. That's a 3/4 ounce jig. I love a 3/4 ounce when we're fishing these brush piles. And I might as well rig, I don't know if I'm supposed to show you guys this right now, but we're gonna let's rig it up. Because we have this new bait coming out. It's called the Bodega, and I shouldn't even tell you guys this. This thing is like my favorite damn bait I've used in a really long time. This is a really special bait. I'm not promoting sponsors, nothing. Like, this is it right here. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to show you. Big, nasty, wavy guy. I caught a 7 on it the other day and a 6, and I didn't fish it very long because we were filming a bunch of product stuff, but this is that bait. Like, I don't like to promote my stuff too much to the Elite Series guys. That's why I got the members only stuff going on. But yeah, this one is an absolutely special bait. It's not out yet, of course, but any big type of creature bait, big beaver, big stroker craw, stuff like that, awesome in those brush piles. And who doesn't want to eat something that looks big like that? It looks kind of silly. It's different actually than most other trailers. A lot of guys on the Elite's been throwing that big flapping hog, the guys that are scoping really good with jigs. This is like an even bigger version of that, except this bait and these tails are like bigger than the ridge tail on the back of the ridge worm. These things have so much flow and so much motion at rest. As my man Lee Livesey would say, motion at rest is huge for him. He says subtle action without the bait even moving. This thing's going to be killer, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But I couldn't talk about a brush pile without, you know, a soaking bait. But if we're going to soak something or throw something in a brush pile this time of year, I don't want it to be a little baby guy. I want it to be old big dong. So let's kind of transition and talk about the other major piece of structure / cover that I like this time of year, and that is steeper, not bluff, but as steep of rock without it being bluff, and as nasty, janky rock as possible that's available on your lake. You might be in the upper Midwest where we have not a lot of rock cover, and the best way to look for that is marinas, jetties, you know, any type of deeper riprap. You might be in the Ozarks or a highland reservoir that is loaded with with rock. And the best place to look there is, we're talking about, you know, channel swings where it's chunk rock, but especially transitional areas, because once you start talking about miles and miles of rock, you got to find something different. So transition areas where the rock changes from big, you know, giant chunky style rock down to some smaller, maybe boulder rock, absolutely perfect. But really finding those areas where it's maybe the first place inside of a creek where it turns, or where it's a secondary little point that comes out where the channel swings into the secondary point. There's a little bit chunkier rock right there. And the number one key that's going to make all of these baits I'm about to show you fire is wind. When you're fishing clean water, even not super clean water, but you're fishing anywhere with rock, wind blowing directly into it, hitting onto it, can make all the difference in the world. Because I think these fish, especially we see this now with live scope, they can spend 90% of their damn life in 72 feet of water, or even, you know, 20 feet of water, just out off eating bait, just targeting bait fish in places where it's extremely difficult to present a bait to them. When that wind starts pushing up there, whether it's the plankton that are up there because of all the bloom with the sun being up, a lot of times, you know, sun's great for this pattern as well, but mostly wind that's making the bait fish and the shad get up there. I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason that you want to call it, it's better with wind blowing. It might be that it's a little bit more stained from it getting stirred up a little bit. I don't know what it is, but the bass think that they have an advantage over their prey, and likely they do, or else they wouldn't be there. Anywhere you got wind blowing in directly into some of the steeper, chunkier rock, absolutely primo. Now, this is a bait here. You guys have seen me catch hundreds, if not thousands, of bass over the years on it. 6 cents provoke jerkbait. I don't know what else to say about it. It freaking catches them. And we got not only the traditional colors that are really good. I need to replace a couple hooks. Well, maybe at least just one hook on this guy. I've been catching too many damn fish on. We got all the teeth marks on that guy. So we got some, you know, we got the DD version, which I really, really like for those steeper banks. We got, you know, the small DD version, the 97 size now, which is a smaller profile. That's extremely popular. We got silent versions. I just kind of try to mix that up based on, you know, the silent versions don't have a weight transfer system, so the ones that are loud will cast just a little bit better. So if you're throwing into the wind a lot, if you don't think that it's really that necessary to have a silent one, they're not super pressured fish or they're really active, I'll throw the loud one. If you want a silent one, you know, we got silent options, but these are all three colors that are new Milliken colors, Milliken exclusive colors that I designed for them, and they're three of the only colors that I even use for jerkbait fishing. If you guys are around shad lakes or clean water, Milliken's Ghost. This is a pro blue hue, but I made some little small changes to it, like a see-through, transparent, flashy foil that it has on it. Hard to see maybe in the garage here. Bottom has a lot of pink iridescence on it. If you guys have bluegill fisheries, perch fisheries, God, I catch them on shad fisheries in this too. But this color right here, Milliken's Flasher, it's like a see-through gold foil with the green top. Again, same bottom on that one. It's a pearl with a little pink iridescence. Absolutely freaking killer. It's just really good when you have like I'd say about 1 foot to 3 foot visibility, a little bit more of a stained watercolor bait. This one is absolutely key. And then last but not least, this super subtle, natural matte color is very, very effective. Milliken's Matte, I think that's called. Milliken's Matte Minnow, maybe. I don't really know. All I know is it freaking works. It catches them. And I'll pick up this guy right here when they're being dickheads. When it's extremely difficult to get a bite, you don't know why. Whatever the watercolor it is, I've catch them in gin clear water on this. I catch them in stained water down to like 8 to 12 inch visibility on this guy. They just freaking eat it. They're all really, really good colors. So go check those out. MF10 code saves you some money on all that 6 cent stuff. Of course, I'm throwing it on my Milliken rod. This is the only jerkbait rod I throw, probably to a fault. I have like 5 of them. When it's a jerkbait tournament on the deck, I had like 5 for the classic. 610, medium, moderate. You can tell I beat the shit out of this one. You about can't break these MF rods, and I can't tell you enough about how effective and how well they've held up for me over the years. People love them. I was just with a tackle warehouse buyer the other day. He was telling me, this is a rod that he thinks he told me he thinks it's the nicest rod at that price point. And again, use my MF10 code and get the only jerkbait rod you will probably ever need. 15 pound or 12 pound fluorocarbon, depending on how shallow I want to fish it, how much cover's around. I'll bump it down to like 10 or so if I'm really trying to get like a DD down 12, 15 feet on a long cast, but almost always 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon, 15 if I'm fishing in heavy brush piles for 10 pounders. Yeah, that's my deal on those. I love those guys, and of course they're also good over the same brush piles we were talking about just a second ago. Now, as we all know, the bait fish are transitioning. A lot of bait fish moving, a lot of bait fish getting chewed up in the month of November. But for whatever reason, they eat this guy right here extremely well also during the month of November, and that is a flat-sided crankbait. And I don't know if I need to say much about this guy right here, but I like to throw them in the same areas where we're talking about the fish sliding up and getting on those rock transition wind-blown areas. Pretty much going to pull these crankbaits out when the water is less than 2 to 3 foot visibility, all the way down to super, super muddy water. This is the 6 cents flat 75, but I also grabbed 2 other flat-sided crankbaits. We have a 6 cents. This here is the Finesse F4. So this is a similar in size crankbait to the flat 75. Flat 75 has a little bit of a knocker in it. It doesn't have a circuit board lip. It's a plastic lip. Finesse F4 has a circuit board lip, and it's a weight transfer. So you can bomb this a lot further. This one will actually run a little bit, maybe a foot to a foot and a half deeper than the flat 75. It also is a little bit louder presence and louder rattle in the water. It's got louder rattles in there. This weight transfer makes kind of like a humming sound as you're pulling it through the water. And there's been days when this one outfishes the flat 75 for me, as much as I don't want to admit that, or I don't want it to be true. It does outfish it sometimes, but if it's windy, if you want to make a long cast, you want to get a little bit deeper, this is the guy to go with. And then cannot leave out this guy right here. If you get some cleaner water, if the fish are really tough, if you're going behind guys all day constantly, or the water's gotten down as cold as it can possibly get in November, which you can catch fish cranking it into the 40s, into even the upper 30s. The PD4 here from 6 cents, this is as finesse of a crankbait as you'll ever probably need to use for bass fishing. Of course, there's all like the BFS type shit now that I don't really understand how it's different than throwing a spinning rod, but I digress. This guy is completely silent, no rattles, very subtle twist action, not a big wide movement, but a really subtle twist. This one's kind of a different bait in that you can fish this thing and without deflecting it. You can fish it in cleaner water and fish will track it down and eat it. It's very popular. And for good reason. That's like my Milliken's classic color that I designed for them. That's a really, really good color in the fall as well, just like it is in the spring. I always throw my flat sides on 2 different rods. This one is my 7.2 medium heavy moderate. This rod was designed basically for throwing this flat 75 and the Crush 50 and the Crush 100 from 6 Sense. It's a graphite rod, so it's gonna have that sensitivity up shallow, but it has just the give enough, so if they slack it, or they freight train it and run the other way on those little trebles, you're gonna get a hook in them. And then this is the rod I'll throw that PD4 on. It's a lighter bait, doesn't have a weight transfer, nothing. It's just what you see is what you get right there. And so I like a little bit more whip to cast it. This is the Team 6 7.3 medium. It's just a really, really good whippy rod for throwing this bait. I'll always throw this on as light a line as I can get away with, because you need as much action out of this bait as possible. Lighter line is going to cause less impediment of the movement of this bait as it's twisting, that twist action through the water column. I like to have a nice reel to throw that on as well. This is a 6-3-1 Daiwa Tatula Elite. And like I said, 10-pound test is great. 12 if you're around a lot of heavy stuff. I don't really go heavier than that. If I need to go heavier than that, then I'm probably fishing one of the other 2 baits, to be honest. But you like to throw this bait, Fritz side, any of those other, silent shallow divers, this rod's really, really good for that technique. One more place I will always check offshore is if it's getting really, really cold in the month of November, especially towards the end of the month here. Some of my best days up north were on some of those, flatter extended points that have rock on them. So if there's any type of hard bottom rock drop off, even some of the shell bed areas that you've graphed maybe on a ledge or somewhere in the middle of summer in the best post spawn times, sometimes, a channel swing that has some hard bottom on it coming out of a big major creek, or any type of rock pile offshore. Again, big heavy jig with a big trailer. This one's going to be a special bait for us, and then I just don't see how you can go wrong with that hybrid jig. I like the hybrid jig because a lot of times some of these channel swings, some of the ledges have brush piles that are either fresh or they've died off and are chunked up. Some of the channel swings, of course, are lined with timber. If you have a football head, you're not going to be able to get through that cover as well as that Divine hybrid head right there. And I go heavy with this stuff, 17-pound fluoro, 20-pound fluoro. This is my favorite jig rod probably that I'm fishing with right now. It's the ESP 7.3 heavy, 7 or 8 speed reel with that heavier line, just something that you can jack them and move a lot of line on the hook set, nothing too crazy. But the biggest thing for me is that rod. This rod's a great pitching rod and a great dragging offshore rod, which is not something that's been too easy to find over the years, that combination. That's all I got, guys. Hopefully you can use some of the tips I gave you in the month of November to catch the biggest bass of your life. Please drop a comment down below. Let me know if you have any more questions about any of the baits or techniques that I just told you guys about. And then don't forget, comment below, hit the subscribe button. You have one more chance, hit the subscribe button. It's not gonna take long. I'll sit here and wait for you. Go hit the subscribe button and then share this video with one of your fishing buddies. And I'm gonna get one of these baits shipped out to one of you guys, hopefully. I'm gonna do the little random draw, randomizer app to figure out who the winners of those guys are. But thanks for watching, Meffers. I'll catch you soon. Out of here. Peace.